All right, here we go again. Man, I love this channel. I got to tell you, I wish this is the only thing I did all day long, 24/7. Justin Bosak right next to me before I pass the mic to him. I mean, this is Rich Widmer with the Unbroken Talk. This is a very unique channel, and I say unique because, man, this is nobody knows this smiling, good-looking young man making me look really old when I remember when I was the baby, but Justin Bosak, nobody knows this name. The time we get done talking, you will know this name. I've got so many no-name interviewers that I have came across, like Justin, that just the strength of their mind, the journey that they overcome, it would blow you away. So this channel is not about me reaching out to anomalies. We all love the rock stars, Michael Jordan and all. They are absolutely unbelievable, but it's hard to relate to that level. It's a matter of being able to relate, to being able to touch, being able to listen to people overcoming obscurities and how they did it. And Justin's no difference. When he wrote in his intake, man, Justin, you're the Cinderella story, man. I got to tell you, a man with, I'm looking at a young man standing there in the mirror with his pockets inside out, not having two nickels to rub together, not in a direction of the old school mentality of having to go to college because he didn't have that opportunity to go. Looked in down deep to want to do something with his life. I mean, and here you are. I mean, I had to write this down because first I'm old, but to go off memory, now he's a successful entrepreneur of multiple real estate firms with highest prestige in the area he lives in Jersey. I had to look at it twice. 70 agents. I mean, that man with his pockets inside out looking like what the hell to do to that. Dude, I got my popcorn. I got my tissues. I'm coming up. I want to listen. So I'm going to pass the mic to you. First and foremost, I want to know how that mentality developed. So take me through very early on, as early as you can go, on how you grew up. And I really want to connect to say, holy shit, that's where that strength of that mind came from. Justin, pleasure. It's all yours, my friend. Tell us how Justin began.
Thanks for having me, Rich. So, began, I guess, in a lower class neighborhood where I didn't know what money really was. I didn't know that really until, middle school, high school. You can kind of see the differences in the levels between other kids and where they lived and the houses they lived in when you're growing up in your own little bubble, your own little community. Everybody has the same small house and you're living in the same small town, going in the same small school. But, you learn quickly thereafter going into middle school that, there's levels to this. And once I kind of understood that and understood different people from different areas, you learn a little bit about life in those moments, and this is seventh and eighth grade.
Seventh and eighth grade. Let me pause you there. So seventh and eighth grade. What is that, like 13 years
Yeah.
old? Is that like 13? Oh, so teenage, and we can agree because reality started making sense to you. You started seeing things. Take me through now. That point is important because at that age, again, you could be doing two different ways. Like you just started, there's some growth, something's going to happen special. Prior to that, how was family life? Mother, father, sibling? What do we have early on? What's a family consist of?
Yeah. So, normal family, three, I got two sisters, one brother.
Two sisters, one brother. So early on, were you involved with any sports activities?
Baseball,
Baseball. And when did you start? When you could walk? When did you start?
t-ball. Yeah. So
T-ball. And you continually played baseball?
I played until I think probably maybe sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
My dad, he loved baseball.
Sport. Mom and dad reinforced that structure. You didn't want to go to baseball.
So
That's it. And the passion came out. So you embraced that. High level of, did you get involved at all with travel team?
just for fun. I mean, it was obviously with travel and stuff like that. It wasn't big back then.
So you went through. So that started. Okay. So now the ball goes to your court now. You finally realized the difference between, getting and this is tongue in cheek, getting jeans at Walmart or Kmart. And
It was just more or less that at that point in middle school that people grew up differently, and I didn't really know that before, so that was kind of like a mindset shift. So I was always really good in school. I excelled in elementary school. I was in, the higher classes, what they call track A. In middle school, did very well, grade wise, pretty much until I got to high school. And
okay.
that was just me finding new friends and really not wanting to go extra with high school because I was bored. I would always get all my schoolwork done during the day at school. For me, I never really wanted to do homework. I was always out playing with my friends, hanging out with my friends growing up. So that was kind of a change because in high school, there was a shift there. Different classes, different things that I didn't want to do. I didn't care about. So I did lose interest in school during high school. I was still in like the higher classes, but I was no longer getting
You were
A's.
bored.
I was, yeah.
You're not in athletics. You're bored. The other alternative, drugs, drinking. Take me there. Were you part of that crew? Did you shift gears, or were you just, gaming? I don't even know if gaming was. You're a young man, but that's a big thing now, right? I mean, that's what they do, soak into the gaming thing. So what did you satisfy that boredness with?
Yeah, I was hanging out with older friends. We were playing cards, riding around. These are kids with cars and stuff. I
Yep.
was at a driving age. So there were some things that happened that were like close calls. You get
Okay.
pulled over by cops, and you're with people that are carrying things that they shouldn't be carrying. I never got out of control, which is good. I'm blessed, I guess, in that way that I always knew where the line was. I mean, I know if I got too close to it, I'd back off, or I'd be
Well,
struggling.
that says a lot, and that's still in high school.
Yes.
So that, I mean, just telling me as people listen to you, you know, that's not always the case. And I mean, I know, going in school, it's that there wasn't the fine line on what you just described, walking that tight, that tightrope, and I just dabbled enough to satisfy my itch and I stayed in control. No, man, they went, that was it. As hell as that. We called them the burnout crew, right? I mean, that was it. So it's interesting that you had enough sense. You put the brakes on. I mean, you wet your whistle for the fun, but put the brakes on. So at what point, how did that unfold? Now I'm really curious. Where did that strength of the mind fun and your grades dipped? You were no longer A plus, you were B, C. Where'd your grades were? How were you with grades even still having that cutting edge fun? Where were you as a student?
Yeah, I mean, I was literally taking my report card that had, mostly some B's and C's, but an F or a D, and I was turning the F into a B
Shit, man.
on the
Yeah,
copy
man.
with a pencil.
Get
I
out
was
the scripto knife.
that art.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're the artist. All right, so we wrap up. You satisfy the itch of cutting the edge, kept yourself clean. Out comes high school. Where's the journey take us, Justin?
Yeah, so like pretty much within 2 years of high school, I started working, which was really a blessing. So my buddy Joe, he got a job at McDonald's, so I was able to follow him
Right
in
on.
the system, and that's what kind of pulled me away from hanging out with the wrong crowd and
You
having
got
too
a
much.
taste of work. You got a taste of responsibility, and you embrace that, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah, once I saw I could take my time and actually make money, it became almost an addiction to a sense. So I'd pick up all the extra hours. I'd work as much as I can because I didn't have money. So, and then back then it was just like, you just wanted money to buy, nicer clothes and stuff like that, because I never relied on my parents to buy me clothes and stuff.
Dude, I love that. I just got to ask a question because I mean, having kids of my own, and it's not about me. That's not always the case, man. I mean, sometimes early stage, I got to whip, the feeling, and it's a different error, the feeling of entitlement of just, so here you are out of school, not college bound, we know, and you embrace wanting to go to work. So the question is, like, was there somebody of a mentor, an inspiration made you, because that's not, well, I mean, you see you're a grown man, you're involved with the church and all the above we'll get to, but that is an unbelievable and very honorable thing to say, hey, I'm going to get to work. That's not the common, and especially in today's world. What made you tech, man? I mean, seriously.
I don't know. I really don't know. It's just something that was kind of, I guess, ingrained in me once I
From mom
that
and dad?
yeah, probably, I saw my mom work a lot growing up, so my parents did get divorced in middle school. And
Okay.
we were living with my mom. My dad lived right around the block though, so he's definitely in our lives still. But she worked a lot, so we were kind of home, door to day a lot, where she was busy working, busy
So
hustling.
you were the latch key, seeing your mom and two things. Kind of just rehearse it in my head as I look at it. You're seeing your mom struggle and limited funds, and I mean, was there a sense of compassion for your mom? Because you made a really good comment on, I didn't want to rely on mom or dad to buy me shit. I mean, did you feel a sense of compassion and you think that's what ignited that? I mean, moms, obviously you had great or still have great respect for mom for recognizing her, right? So
Yeah.
then wanting to just kick it. I mean, that is because obviously what I'm trying to find, like Cinderella. I'll do my own richism. I'm not going to call you Cinderella. It's Cinderella. A young man with his pockets inside out, not having anything, and where you are today, something's ticking you. And what the hell is ticking you? So starting with sports and now the compassion for your mom to want to do it yourself, maybe prove things wrong or just say, fuck it, man. It's on me. You think that it sounds like the inspiration on.
Yeah, I think I just got put into the right situation. So the store that I was at was very well run. The Chapman family owned, I think, like
Mm,
the McDonald's at that point. So they had a great system that allowed them to promote people from within. Like they
nice.
knew how to train and they knew how to scale. And you wouldn't think that, I don't know, if you never worked at a McDonald's, obviously, you wouldn't know. Not all of them are run the same, that's for sure. But you could see that you could elevate, within the company and move up, so that it seemed very attainable. So once it's attainable, you're like, well, I'm here anyway. Why wouldn't I work hard? And not everybody gets that. A lot of people were goofing around. A lot of people didn't care. A lot of people not showing up for work and stuff like that. But I took it serious because I just saw that there was a way to, very early on, make a lot more money than, the other kids that were still in high school.
It was ingrained in you, man. I mean, it was that, and this is where I just love this shit because I get the privilege of seeing each and every person's mind develop in it's like fingerprints. Everybody's different, but there's a common element. Some have that mindset that changes and that mindset of power, strength. Let's face it, the channel Unbroken, that no matter what, man, I'm going to get it done. Sometimes it happens, I've had where they didn't until they were 40, but you get a sense in that pattern from an early on, from the adolescence of baseball getting constructive, and then little tidbits. You tell me, you say, what, 13 I started seeing the difference. Your mind another level. Now I got at I played, I fucked around, not doing sports, but I cutting edge until I walked that tight line, that gray area. I'm cool, got out of that. Then opportunity for work, making coin. Now it's, hey, wait a minute, I can go even further. It's like working out. It's like everybody I share or coach or help with, it's like it's baby steps. You didn't work out for 10 years, 30 years, 4 years, bad habits, one step at a time. And all of a sudden your brain you just locomote. Now this is absolutely making sense. We're building the foundation on why you are where you are. So now an opportunity, I'm assuming with McDonald's, there's the owners or managers, mentors for you, put your arms around you and said, man, this is how it works.
Yeah, so I saw two good friends of mine really that started working because they're a little bit older than me within the company, and saw them get promoted, saw them make more money, saw them doing well. So for me, it was like, okay, like I have a path. I could see a way to make more money, while I'm here. So pretty quickly, within 2 years, I was in management for the company.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So talk to me about management. Talk to me. So it was working the front or doing the back, and gradually was there an assistant manager? Like you went to shift leader, I imagine. What did mom and dad say about this? What about coins coming home, cashing the check? Contribute, makes sense. Mom, I'm good. Talk to me about that interacting with family. How'd that unpack?
Yeah, I think they were just happy that I was doing something. It wasn't really something that was truly discussed in depth, but yeah, I was just kind of always doing my own thing. That's for sure.
That's probably feeling like Justin. He's going to be all right, man. He's good. How about your sisters? Were same kind of attitude per se like you? Did you that strong mind rub off? They older or younger? Where are we?
Younger, everybody's younger.
Okay. Did you set the stage on work hard, get the coin, don't worry about it?
I mean, I'd like to say I set the bar, but yeah, I mean, my older sister Rachel, she started working there, but I guess she didn't like it. She ended up doing something else, and the two younger ones, they ended up moving away for a little bit further out from where we were at.
Okay.
So yeah, they kind of got you know. I think my younger brother did actually work there for a little bit, but yeah, just never
All right.
took his own path. Everybody kind of took their own
Took
path.
their own path. Well, we're focused on you. So you set the bar. Now you're running the place. We continue one step at this point, and I know from the intake and knowing having the pleasure to be introduced to you by a mutual friend, very Christian oriented. When did that? So was your family always involved with? Where did that? Because I know that's a big part. That's the focus. We definitely don't want to leave out the higher authority. When did that enter?
Yeah, so that was, when I was born. I was really born into it. I mean, my dad was the driver behind it. He played in a Christian rock band. He was always into music growing up. So he's actually,
Did we leave all that out at the early stage? That's awesome. Okay.
yeah, so he's still involved. He's still playing. He's actually just played with a new band called Oracle. So he's always dabbling. That's for sure.
That's awesome. So that, needless to say, was probably also a big impact on you making the right decisions and moving forward. Very active. Was it a ongoing togetherness, going to church together on a regular basis?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say until I was like 17. When I started working, obviously I was working weekends and stuff. So church, kind of fell by the wayside at that point. It didn't fit into the schedule anymore, unfortunately.
Well, that's interesting. So we'll pull up, and I get that. It's becomes a wave, right? As far as, time and level, and by no means am I going to say the level of belief, but we certainly can be sidetracked by our flesh and what we got to do at hand, but spiritually it could be just reserved. Did you notice from being very active, because I it's safe to say that probably had a good impact from a mentality standpoint, keeping you to then when you kind of weren't as involved? Do you kind of see if it mentally or looked at, through the glasses were a little cloudy because you weren't actively into it and then eventually came into it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'd say the foundation was definitely there. Where you really know between right and wrong, I guess, once
Hmm.
when you're plugged into that kind of system and faith belief. But still, there was things that I was doing. I was going out to clubs and stuff, and just living life.
Yeah,
Being
man.
trying to be free, trying to do my own thing. And, I learned over time that, that doesn't last forever. And that's not how to build a relationship. That's for sure. Because I actually got married when I was 21, ended up getting divorced within 7 or 8 years. And during that whole time, we were not in church. I had two kids. We were not in church. So when everything kind of fell apart, in 2008, when, the pretty much whole entire financial system collapsed, obviously at that point involved in real estate, completely changed my life, completely needed something.
All right, I'm gonna freeze because this sets now we're at the bottom of the mountain, right? Okay, we hear an unbelievable journey, So when you were promoted management at McDonald's, you were how old were we then? 18, 19?
Yeah, 17 was like the
Nah.
first promotion. Then I got, I think 18 to 19, I continued.
Okay, so we're talking from that 18, let's just call it 18, into that working actively with McDonald's, then meet your soon to be ex, but at 21, and then get married, have children, but that pocket was primarily focused on the flesh at hand per se, what you were involved with, and the faith kind of was sitting on the nightstand with some dust on it per se. Okay, and that so you can contribute that kind of didn't see you were still at McDonald's through the whole course of the marriage or at some.
Oh, no. So I ended up pretty much, my leadership style was kind of lead by example, you know,
Mhm.
rather than, just yell at people. So there's some other people that got promoted to run like their own stores. I was what they call first assistant. So I kind of ran the store when the general manager wasn't there. Did a lot of the tasks that the general manager would do. It's kind of
Right,
like, GM in training.
right.
Got passed over. One of my other buddies who had gotten passed over for his own store went to a company called Aldi's. They were just kind of opening up in the area at the time. He said, "Why don't you take a look at it? They're paying more." I did, and I ended up going there for 2 years. That was a unique journey. I ended up in Roselle Park. I moved up in that world pretty quickly as well, and because of my work ethic
Your
and
drive, man. You got a taste of it. So even though you were disconnected from faith driven, humanistic, you still have that mental drive, which is ridiculous. Just grasping it. So take us Aldi's and then where are we going? Married, kids coming at that time?
yeah, married, one child that was hanging out with us now.
Mhm.
She was born right after 9/11.
Right
It
on.
was 2 weeks after. But yeah, just working really hard, literally there 6 days a week, for probably anywhere between 9 to 12 hours. And then obviously 2 hours commuting back and forth to Roselle Park from Tom's River. It wasn't close by. So then, over time, I kind of learned that after running a store, the next step would be supervisor. And the problem with supervisor was that you needed a 4-year degree, and I didn't have one. So
That's
I
where it
saw
comes in.
yeah, I saw that the growth was kind of stunted at that point. So I said, I can't do this the rest of my life. Or not that I can't do it, I don't want to.
Yeah,
Was
understood.
I would have gotten
Even with, and this is just an intrigued question, even with the success you had, it was written in stone that a 4-year degree was required. That was it.
yeah, and I knew more than my supervisor that would
Yeah,
come.
it's interesting. You have to have like over $100,000 in debt to be able to do what you're doing now, and then some. It's kind of irate, but I don't want to get off track. But that's interesting. But yet there was a point, man. That was even though the Bible, the faith is on the nightstand collecting a little dust. There was a plan for you. It wasn't meant. All these was not it, even though I do like that store. It wasn't on the plan. So unfold it. What's next? Still married, though. Still married right now at this point? Okay. How was, meant relationship and all? You were living up there. So was it, or they were down? Or did you have a big commute? Was there,
Yeah, I had a long commute.
okay. So things started to get disconnected with that until, along with work or so, what were you experiencing to make a shift to the next venture as we discussed Justin's path? What do we got? What's next?
Yeah, so during high school, I actually did a report, what do you want to be when you grow up on real estate. So, and I actually took it very seriously to the point where at that point, I also talked to my father about it. And I said, I
Mhm.
think it's something that I'd like to do. I did. So during McDonald's days, I did put myself through classes at OCC for accounting just to kind of taste it, just to kind of see, is this something that I wanted to do? I found out I
Right,
didn't want to do it.
right.
Wrong thing. But that report that I did in real estate, it came back up. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should try that. At the point of, you're 18, 19, that's tough to kind of get into. You're young. You should try some different things in life. You should have some kind of job. You should get some life experience. You should build up your network. You
Right.
should build up your friend group.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Real estate, 100% commission based. So it just turned out at that time, I went and got my license quit the job at Aldi's because I couldn't go to school. You had to go to school in person for 2 weeks.
Hmm.
I couldn't get the 2 weeks off in a row to do it. So I started working with somebody that I knew that was in construction just to make money while I was going through the process of getting my license. Within, I think, 6 months, had my license, saw a ad in the newspaper for a company in Long Branch that was hiring for salary, which was unique.
Dude, take no prisoners, man. I mean, I want to hear that, but I got to ask, was there ever a point, because, your plate's full right now, and two kids, and the pressure of, like, you're at work. This is where I love to just dissect and ask if you could think. You're at Aldi's. You know you can't go any further with this. Some people just, okay, keep my salary, whatever it was, 50, 60, 70, whatever the hell it was, and that's it. But for you, for 75, okay, and in today's world, that's like, I don't even want to say, it doesn't take much, right? Yeah. So for you to be able to go to the next level, now I'm sensing high aspirations. I mean, just, you just put the pedal to the metal and turning around this Cinderella story. What, how did it feel? Can you think of the moment that you said, real estate, man? Like, can you think of what, was there ever a doubt? Like, what made you get up and say, I'm taking the classes, man, I'm getting out of here, it's time for me to do it? Like, can you remember, place back to that? Like, how did that feel? What do you think made you tick? What was that defining moment? Because I always talk about defining moments, inspiration. We all have gazillion defining moments in our lifetime. I always say wanting to lose weight is, everybody can relate to. And we all know December, I want to lose weight. January, yeah, everybody's got Pelotons. The gym is packed. Come February, the gym is empty. Pelotons are for sale on Craigslist. Everybody has a defining moment, and they need that inspiration to follow through, taking baby steps, no matter what, to reprogram their mind. This is intriguing to me because this sets the plate on your success right now. That defining moment to take that real estate test is the key component of where you are today. Do you remember what made you want to turn up the burners, baby? You remember?
Yeah, I mean, I was still kind of young. I'm still like 21, 22 years old at that time. I knew that this was going to be the rest of my life. And I knew that if I was going to take that risk, it was going to be easier to take that risk now than later on.
At 21, you're thinking of this. Are you living with parents or something, or you're self-sustained with your family?
Yeah, no, at that point, I'm still staying with family.
Okay, pressure off. Some pressure off, a little bit support. Go ahead. Really, that defining moment, man.
But yeah, no, I knew that just by looking at the other people within the companies that I was
Mm,
at, both McDonald's and all these, I saw people that I knew that got stuck. And I knew that probably had better potential, but they just got stuck.
that's it.
And I knew I did not want to be that guy that got stuck. I don't want to be limited. I never want to be in a position where I'm capped on what I can do. And it just worked out that real estate was, one of those things.
That was it. So that's the defining moment. I want to just, so you're sitting in that circle with your own thoughts, aggressiveness, desires, passion. Is there anybody in there and anything? Because now action has to happen, right? You got to do something. We can have defining moments. I mean, every day people reach out for me, I want to get in better shape. But, all right, reach out to me. Nobody ever does it, right? So what was, and I always say this, it's like, what was your inspiration to actually make you sign up for the real estate class and move forward? Was it friends, families, mentors, your own? You inspired yourself by the fear of getting stuck. What was
Yeah.
it?
No, that was it. I didn't know anybody in real estate at that time. I had no mentors in that space. Back then, social media obviously wasn't a thing, and there
Mm,
was YouTube where you can learn how to do things. You would hear about some people that had success doing real estate, but it wasn't what it is today, front and center, where you can kind of see, the glitz or the glamour that they show on some of these TV shows of kind of like real estate could be. I mean, it isn't really like that, but there wasn't anything like to push me to do it for other reasons other than I just thought I could do it, and I knew that if I did a really good job, that I would be able to create, pretty much whatever I wanted to create.
You hear yourself, Justin? You hear yourself, dude? I'm proud of you, man. You know what it, and you're a young guy. You're in your early 40s, I think, right? And me as 59, I have yet to tell my story. We wouldn't have enough time in the day. I'd probably take a week, and that's just because I have so many that this up and downs. But having talked to thousands throughout my career, do you know how many people that I could probably count on just both hands that are self-driven? Self, like to sit down in the mirror, look at yourself and say, I got this, man. I'm not getting stuck. I'm not being the statistic. I'm just getting it done. That is an incredible to share that with your kids. And I'm sure you haven't, you know, analyzed your own strength and passions for yourself. That would be like, yeah, man, I'm it. Then that would radiate. So that guy, you know what I mean? But you're self-driven, man. That is hold your head up high. I could probably say right now, and that's why you are a leader. We're going to hear the continuation of your outstanding, strong mind. But I'm sure that anyone underneath your platform has such a great confidence when there are situations that Justin will get this done. You just figure it out, man, because I know firsthand that you'll share with a child that is truly special when there was a situation that you saw, which you'll touch base on. Man, you took on a county, a state, a conglomerate to develop a field of dreams to be able to have others. So I commend you, man. You probably don't know how powerful your mind is, but that self, and I know I'm repeating myself, but that is, when somebody's listening to this, it can be done. And now they know who Justin is. You can self inspire. People can have a defining moment and self inspire to want to be the best version of themselves. And we're talking your age is what? Right at that time was what, 21? 20.
21.
Okay, 21, and you're now in your early 40s. So we're talking 20 years. It was a drip campaign for you. So a drip campaign to reach that success of being self-inspired. Commendable, man. Commendable. Outstanding, man. I'm proud of you just listening to this story, but it all makes sense. Now, real estate. Tell me, how did that unfold? You committed yourself to the test and the licensing, and now you went to a salary. I know I kind of interrupt you, but we had to hear more. You got a salary job. Pick us up from there. What were you?
Yes. So started at a company, was YHD, Your Home Direct, discount
Mm.
brokerage. It was just pretty much a job to start on the phones, pretty much taking a pay cut to half of what I was making at that time. But, again, I knew I was just getting into business. So I was looking at it long term. When I got there, they were actually just splitting off pretty much a group into another group, which was cold callers. And the cold callers would be making more money based upon incentives, and they were setting up appointments for listing agents. Within that 2 weeks of just starting, I learned that was actually happening.
Awesome.
And there was probably about 40 or 50 people on the floor. It was great environment. It was kind of like boiler room setup
Mm.
where it's like all open, everybody's on the phones, everybody's hanging out. My one good buddy, still a good friend of mine today, Olivier, he kind of showed me the ropes, showed me how things work. And within 2 weeks, I was like the top ranked guy on the phones, literally not even knowing anything but what he told me to do.
Not shit. You just followed that script, baby.
He was moving over to the new group. So I'm like, dude, I want to come with you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
After he goes over there, I just start staying extra. I just start learning. I'm like, I got to learn this because I'm going to be over here. And the management saw me kind of hanging out, and they were younger too. I started asking a bunch of questions, and eventually I'm over there. Started ranking high over there, and
They
then
saw your hunger. You're hungry, man. Feed
they
me.
said if I'm there, I'm gonna do my best. That's it. I'm gonna work as much as I can. And it wasn't necessarily that I was the best. Sometimes it was just I would stay late. I would clock out and I would just stay late and I would just work extra if I had to.
You broke you the norm, but this is what it takes. Like if it was now again, there's individuals that Don't have to work so hard. That's called just anomalies. The talent, no matter what comes out of their mouth, it's the golden spoon. That is not the normal. The 9 to 5 is the 9 to 5 where your comment is true, where it is dead end, stagnant. And for some people, that's okay. That's okay. But somebody that has your mind that, time out, doesn't satisfy my taste. It's just like school, man. School was so easy for me. Then I got bored. Your appetite. Now you're feeding the appetite of success to climb the ladder of what you're developing your passion. I always say, grow your passion, success will follow. And you're growing it, man. You are shining. So you're tearing it up. They see you staying. Did they move you over where you wanted to go?
Yeah, of course. I got moved over.
That's awesome. Take us there. Continue.
Yeah, started ranking highly over there. Again, was never the top guy because I was not really a true salesperson.
Mhm.
I was just committed to make the number of calls I needed to make and do what I had to do. And, plus some of the guys that were doing the sales, they weren't really doing a good job setting great appointments for our listing agents. And it actually ended up turning out in my favor because I would make sure they got real appointments, booking fake appointments because you would rank on points and stuff like that. And then they started giving me appointments to book into their calendar, which I would get points for. So it all turned out, I'm like, oh, I'm doing the right thing. They see that I'm not wasting their time, and they're rewarding me back with something that
Nice.
that could benefit me. Then eventually, the company moved to having buyers agents in the field. And at that time, I think we were about 2005 now. One of my buddies that worked at the company was like the first buyer agent. And I said, let me ride along with you. I want to see what you do, because this was like the real version of becoming a real real estate agent at that point in time. Now I'm like 24. Now I'm confident because I really understand, real estate. And for about, I'd say probably 6 months to a year, I was pushing to move over. They did not want to move me over though. I interviewed. They wanted to hold me in the cold calling thing because I was doing well over there.
Right.
Um, Eventually, I just annoyed them enough to where they gave me the opportunity to become a buyer agent, and now I'm out there actually showing homes to the buyers.
How did that feel?
It felt
How do you
great.
feel in your mindset, mind, body, soul? You're feeling accomplished?
Yeah, I feel like I'm learning along the way, and I
Mhm.
wanna learn, and I never wanna get stuck, right? Because it's just graduating. I got to a level where I knew I was confident in what I was doing in the past, cold calling, where I knew that was a tool that I could use, but I knew that there wasn't really much I was gonna gain by continuing to do that other than to just make money. So, I wanted to learn something new, working with real people in the field, way different than just, calling people over the phone and booking appointments.
Gaining experience. So you're 24, 25. How's home life, marriage, kids?
Yeah, from what I knew, it was great. It was
It was
fine.
good.
I was working a lot though,
Okay.
especially as a buyer's agent. So I think that took a toll on, the relationship and everything as it should. But at that time, things were getting expensive. The market was going up. I bought a house in 2005. So I knew I'm the only one working. I've got to pay the bills. I've got to work as hard as I can.
Pressure's on. How were you dealing with that pressure in your position from, 25, 24-year-old kid? With all due respect, still a baby. Compared to, he's still a young man.
Yeah.
How is that pressure, maintaining? You get what you receive. You're balls to the wall. You're all in. Sorting it through, able to handle it. Talk to me about.
100%. Always able to handle it, always able to figure it out. But it's more work, and when you're stacking more work onto more work onto more work, and now, from 8 o'clock at night till 12, I'm dealing with emails and following up with things and doing things that, I probably shouldn't have to do. Uh, I was so busy because I was really the top buyer's agent in my county.
Mhm.
I was so busy that that's just what I needed to do. And at that point, there was no solution to kind of resolve that. But then within a year or two, the company then just closes shop. So it became fight or flight at that point. Was I going to stay in the business? Was I going to go back to all these or get a job? And I was going to tough through it. The day that we found out our company was literally closing, I was at a closing table closing a deal knowing that I wasn't going to get paid for that deal. You know,
Talk about that.
yeah, we were salaried
Wow.
and
Yeah.
bonus.
Right.
So I said, all right, let me go to my buddy's house. It's Frankie Z, the guy that I did the first ride along with.
Right.
I go over to his house and I literally say, I'm staying in this business. What do you want to do? And I start making calls to other agents that are doing real estate and find out that they also want to stay in business. So I'm like, all right, cool. We can actually try to group together and keep the synergy going because at that time I'm a buyer's agent, very reliant on a listing agent having a listing and
Hmm.
some cold calling so the listing agent could have the listing. So we had like all these different things that we did. So once we came together at that point and decided there was, I think, six of us at that point that we were going to stay in the real estate business, then I actually was able to hack into our old system and get all of our old leads and contacts and everything and
Right.
pull everything out of it.
And we could say that because the company's dead. And
And it wasn't that big of a hack. It
it
was
was,
one of
yeah, it's
it was one of our
understood.
supervisors who it was funny. He was a nice guy. He just wasn't the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah. Right.
But he never changed his login password. Everybody got a basic login password when they started in the system, and he never changed his. And I just thought, first shot, who's a guy that still has access in the system because he was still there that wouldn't change his password? And I'm like, it's this guy. Tried it, got in, downloaded everything.
There you go. Okay. So you had, now here's where the rubber meets the road. What unfolded?
So from there, we just decided we're staying in business. We're going to go start interviewing around.
Hmm.
So we ended up going to Century 21. We were able to negotiate a pretty good deal. I mean, nobody gives you laptops and cell phones and stuff like that when running a brokerage, and we were able to do that. I just thought that was normal. I just had a complete misconception on how real estate was done because I was in my little bubble where I was doing 40, 50 deals a year. I thought it was normal for real estate agents, but I learned after going to this new company, it wasn't normal. So we had to kind of start and build this team from scratch. And that was when teams didn't really exist. Teams are a big thing now in real estate, but there were no teams back then. It was like maybe a mother daughter team or husband and wife team, but they weren't really a team. We were actually one of the first teams, one of the first true teams here in New Jersey to exist. And from there, within like a year or two, we learned that actually we picked the wrong company to work with. We just didn't know any better. And from there, we actually ended up going to Remax. This is 2009.
Okay. All right. And the entire team came with you. You're on
Mhm.
Remax. Okay. Maintaining, I would assuming at this point, still married with kids, all the above.
Yeah, so that's kind of when everything was falling apart.
Okay.
So landed at Remax, and probably within a year, that's when I went through my divorce.
Yeah. What was it and this is obviously share as much as you want. This isn't about pry, but the work, the toll of the hours and all playing a contributing factor type of all the above.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't for me. I think work is my distraction,
Yeah.
but
Understood.
um,
Okay.
maybe for her, I don't know. We were just going on two completely different paths in life at
Okay.
that time. I had an expectation, on what I thought where things were going, and it just was not lining up.
Understood. Understood. So that fortunately, unfortunately ended. Where's the journey now pick up from here? We still have the nightstand with the Bible still dust on. So now you're in a I'm going to say another defining moment, right? We're at a pivotal point. So what you're looking at yourself, you're thinking whatever it may be, another one that we could share, what's going inside your head? What are we doing?
So for the year before, there was this lady, Phyllis, who was in my ear about coming to church. And she was a client. She was an investor. She was looking for investment properties and stuff. And at that point, going through divorce, it was not what I wanted. At that point, it worked out to be the best for both. But there was times where I didn't have my kids, so I'm alone for like the first time in life. And you really start to reconsider life as a whole. Things enter your brain, you think maybe, do I need to be here at that point? Am I actually, was my intention, was my thought of my life, and real estate and being involved in all these different things? Who was I good for at that point?
Questioning yourself. one question after another. I totally relate.
Yeah, and I needed other distractions because now, like, my whole life changed. My schedule changed, everything changed. So yeah, I decided, all right, let me go to church. Let me check it out. Let me see what this church is all about. This is 2009. That and then going to the gym. That was something I never did in life. I never really worked out. Playing sports was one thing, but I mean, I wish I knew about lifting weights when I was in seventh or eighth grade. I probably would have been even more into baseball, if I
Yeah, understood.
getting more
Understood.
home back then. But I didn't even understand the concept of working out or lifting weights. Nobody was teaching me that back then.
It's a good comment. Nobody was teaching you back then. Now, the phones, the internet, informational highway, anything you want to know is at it. Google, Alexa, I encourage exposure, exposure, exposure. Give yourself exposure to everything. This way you can make the choices and perfectly align what's deep inside you. First and foremost, you had an amazing journey, which I'm so proud and have the privilege of listening to. Unfortunately, even though dust collected on the side dresser with the Bible, he was still present in your life because we know, as a brother in Christ, our path is laid out. We have free will. We do what we want, etc. But now the pivotal point, where the smoke settled, kids aren't right there. Wife isn't there. You're home. The smoke settles. You get a chance to reflect. And really, I mean, I'll speak for you, with you, about you, as I've said it. The fuck am I doing? I mean, I need something. I feel empty. There's a sense of loneliness and empty. And you circled right back to where knocking on the door, he's going to open it. There it is. Walk through. You walk in church. I know what it felt like for me when I walked and we shared, a local church, which I had the privilege of going. But how did it feel to be able to rekindle with your faith through the doors of that church when you sat? Talk to, like, what did you feel? Because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I
what?
mean, it really, like, pastor had a message just for me the first time I walked.
Amen, man. Amen. Yeah.
I heard literally what I needed to hear, and I said, "All right." Even though it is tricky in real estate to come to church on Sundays because I'm dealing with open houses and stuff like that, and then moving the kids back and forth for babysitters, and while I'm working on the weekends, I said, "All right, I'm coming back. I'm definitely coming back." So yeah, I mean, it wasn't like every week at that point, but I started to form relationships, within the church and seeing kind of just different mindsets and different people in life that I really was not around at all by any means. Not in my work life, family. My dad was still going to church, but I didn't see him often. At that point, he relocated from where he lived and moved up in North Jersey. So we didn't really talk much about church or anything like that. I didn't really have anybody to really discuss it with. So now forming these relationships and meeting people and then meeting the pastor and then actually helping out with the church pretty quickly, which is like some real estate stuff that had come up. And then learning, his story. His story was super impactful on me in my life because there's no perfection. And I think that was one of the one things that I thought that was keeping me from church was because I wasn't good enough to go to church. And that's a complete misconception. You go to church to get better. It's like you don't go to the doctor when you're not sick.
No, that's an intro. You've always felt that way? Not good enough?
I felt like, yeah, I wasn't ready. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't going to match up to the other people in the church. You
Wow,
know,
that's interesting, man. That's
yeah,
interesting. Wow. That is, so you feeling you are completely broken and you need to fix yourself before you can go into a place that's truly solely based on being the fixer. Wow, that's an interesting take. That message, feeling that kind of broke down those walls for you.
absolutely. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
once I got the message and started hearing, and I'm like, oh, wow, there's some good mindset things that are happening. within the church that are shifting the way that I was actually thinking about myself or about life in general. And that, I am still young. I can make corrections. I can become better. I can experience different things in life. I can meet new people. I can have a completely different path in life and just kind of veer off the path that I was on, which, it wasn't like, I was going to go crazy or I wasn't, doing anything wrong. It was just, I wasn't focused on what I needed to be focused on, which is kind of probably why things did fall apart. There wasn't a focus. I was just driven on work. I say this to some friends. I think I've learned that there is some form of ADHD or ADD in a lot of entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
Think that, we may not be addicted to drugs or alcohol or things like that, but we sure are addicted to work. And that becomes one of the things where I can go to work and it erases everything that's going on in life, good, bad, whatever it may be. I'm focused on that task. I'm focused on working, and I can eliminate all the different factors that are happening in life. Family issues doesn't matter. I'm working. I'm busy, and that probably became like a coping mechanism, over the years for myself, is that if I just work, if I just keep working, I'll control things better. I can make things better. And, it came to the point where I learned that you also have to be efficient in your work world and have balance, in life, in order to truly be successful. Otherwise, everything is going to crash and fall apart. It's not sustainable to work, 80 to 90 hours a week. Some people, listen, if you have nothing going on, God bless you, do it. But if you do have a family, if you do have kids, that is something that becomes almost impossible, especially as an entrepreneur, when you are also not able to shut it off at home. You're answering phone calls, you're on the computer, you're booking appointments. So even though you're home, you're not technically present. So truly, like to this day, I still have somewhat of an addiction to work, but it's a healthy addiction now. It's more or less
Yeah.
becoming more efficient, figuring out ways to just make things better, always growing. That has never that'll never leave me. It's always creating and always growing, but doing it within a time box that fits within life so that I have balance and I have boundaries and I have rules, which I had none of before.
Well, it just what a powerful explanation of your journey, because I'm going to comment on two things that you shared is when you talk about the attention deficit disorder about, and I agree with that. And I think it's not a work thing. It's a striving for the challenge of challenging ourselves to be great at what we do, all in, because, having the similar personalities, it's like anything that I get involved with, whether it's work or, when I was coaching Little League or wrestling, whatever topic, I'm all in, man. I mean, it is like all in to the maximum of capacity. So that is one thing which I totally agree. But what you said is growing. That word growing for you, you took your experiences from the past. Every experience you had, and I'll highlight the negative ones, from where you really thought maybe did not nurture the marriage from not enough time to maybe with the kids and not being present at home. I relate to all these things to now you're at a point of your age and success. You learned you're a true definition of learning from your mistakes. And that is the growth. You can grow, but yet enhance the growth with success on what you already done. That's like, an amazing feat. So to be an entrepreneur, which we're going to unpack this because right now you're still only working for Remax, right? So some outstanding things. So well said. Now take us, Remax. Where does the big step go into where you're developing an empire? How does that unfold?
Yeah, so I mean, we're starting out working for another broker. We get our own space, which is super important because we were kind of, this is crazy. Our office at Century 21 relocated from a nice office to a bi-level, and where they shoved us in like a 10 by 8 room, 6 of us, and we all had desks, and we were all used to working in the office every single day. This is not like optional. Like we showed up, so we knew that this was never going to work. So we got our own space, which was just key, because we needed space to be able to, write on the board or throw the ball around or just listening to some music. It was good energy, always good culture. This is kind of what we thrived and grew on, and we learned when we worked at the other company because we had all worked together. And then hiring an assistant. That was like one of the first things our broker was pushing on us. She's like, "You guys need an assistant." And at that time, we had a little bit more time because the market wasn't as busy, but I was doing things like marketing and advertising stuff, which was more or less template stuff. But I still thought like, oh, I got to be the right one to write the description. I got to be the one to pick the picture. And it's, in the grand scheme of things, that stuff really didn't matter that much. I could always proof it and make sure that, hey, if this is not right, I can correct it. But I was literally wasting hours a week doing that. And, my business partners were also doing tasks that they were wasting time where you weren't meeting with clients and it wasn't client focused. It was again more marketing, advertising, database stuff, all the back end operational stuff that needs to happen in the business, but doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be doing it. So when we hired that assistant, she picked up a lot of those things from us. It allowed us to grow and build that much more, meet with more clients and do the important things that were actually the money earning tasks. So then we're building the team. We're taking on other agents now at that point to come underneath us. And we're super successful in the Toms River market, doing a lot of deals in North Dover, dealing with new construction and stuff at that point in time. And that went on for a couple of years. And we got approached to join another brokerage. They wanted to recruit us. Then we talked them into becoming minority partners in that firm. And then we, gave our broker kind of a last chance to kind of see if there was something there. And we ended up coming up with an agreement that we were going to open up a new office and be partners in that branch. And we did it. Then we opened a second office, and the original owner kind of was fading back. She had some health issues, so she kind of passed things to her daughter, and things kind of started falling apart. On the back end of the operational part of the Remax side, not our business because we still have our own assistant, and we had to part ways. From there, and we ended up taking over the wall office. At that point, I think we just had maybe like 10 or 12 agents on the team, and then maybe about 20 total agents in the office. This is probably about now 2018. So we're really starting from scratch. We had to learn the finance and the operational part of the business, which we really didn't have any experience in. We
Right.
kind of plugged and played and built on top of their platform, which was great. At that point, that company had about 160, 170 agents. So they went on their own. They had their own kind of offices. We had our own offices, and we were building and growing. We were reinvesting back into our company. Part of the things that we had issues with them were we were trying to do things, and they were like, "No, you can't do that because we don't want to do that in our other offices, and it's going to make it different or difficult." And we're like, well, we're going to beta test it here, and then when we prove that it works, you can use it in the other offices. These are things that agents need, and there was just disagreements there. So as we're building our own company now, we're integrating more things into it.
Mhm.
And now we're rolling. I mean, agents are kind of coming over left and right because they see the value, because they know that our success is based upon our systems and processes and all the things that we added onto the business that never existed. We had transaction coordinators that are helping out with the deals. Like I mentioned before, when I was up from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock at night, following up with emails and process and stuff like that. So we have somebody now that's just taking care of all that stuff during the day so that I can be more focused. We have a sign guy who's running around doing signs. So we're creating all these things that don't exist in the space.
Yeah, you really, and if I interact, two things is you basically, and this is truly needed for a true entrepreneurship because you started, you know, washing the floors and everything and above, and you saw, the man behind the curtain, and you saw how it worked, and you could see how it could be more efficient. I mean, that's so true with a company that first and foremost can bring in business, the talent. I always call it's the talent, and then how to keep that talent doing what they do best and everything behind the talent, assigning tasks so you could just do the talent at hand. That is truly unbelievable. That's the greatest piece of machinery you're proving history. So that is outstanding. My question, when you mentioned a few times the synergy, the energy or so, the individual, now you are rekindling your faith. So I know when he's present in your life, you're looking through a set of lenses a different way, just trying to be the best version of yourself, having greater respect, greater dignity, greater compassion to people. And you know exactly what I'm referring to. You feel that goodness. Did others within the office, did they have the same, whether it be Christian faith or just that personality? It's always great. I know when, you want to, how should I say, referral sources, being in business, being friends, when you're able to hang out and relate to that person, to have a successful relationship, whether it be friendship or business, it's just balls to the wall. I mean, endless. Did they have similar beliefs, your team, to have that synergy? Business partners, or just their personality was so meshed with you in their beliefs, or say? And I don't mean, this isn't a preaching in a way, and you know where I'm going, where it doesn't mandate everybody has to be a Christian to be synergy. That's not what I'm saying. But the relationship, to be able to have that connection, because then you're sharing the same passion. Is that where the connection comes? Or elaborate where, your foundation was just tight.
Yeah, so the way I guess we approached real estate was definitely more consultative than sales, and 100% with ethics and doing what's best for clients. So that's one thing we all shared, which, when you're talking about church and faith and everything like that, I mean, you know, that's really the experience that people, I think, long to have. They don't want to be sold something. The business partners that I had at that point weren't going to church. One of them is actually attending the church. We talk about it now more than ever before, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, still during that time, everybody was kind of like doing their own thing outside of work. We hung out so much inside of work that, there wasn't really, that it's, I guess it's blurred lines is you're not, you're personal and business all the time anyway. But like to me, church, like never advertised that I was a real estate agent or I laid low. I just wanted to go to church to actually like take off, I was wearing during the week, which was, being in business. So I didn't really go there to build on relationships for any other reason than I wanted a relationship to learn, with our pastor. And that was it. I didn't network much. I didn't hang out much because I am obviously still busy and still growing.
Right, understood.
But I am obviously connected, which is what's great. But nothing really. I walked in there to get the word, and that's it.
That's
That was
awesome.
that.
And you take it. That's fantastic. So at this point now, you have one location, not present, but when you were making the pivot and things were growing, where were you then? Had the story end now to bring you to current now?
Yeah,
Where are you?
correct. One location at that time. Then we opened up. We have four offices now. So we have Wall, Spring Lake, Lavalette, and Brick.
Just that philosophy is just gaining speed, and the fruits of the labor is just showing. Justin, I'm so proud of you, man. That's ridiculous. But one thing I do want to say, and then I'll kind of bring this to a head. I had the pleasure at least to meet your significant other. We kind of draped over that, and children. When did that unfold? At what point were you saying, this is the one? That's it. Because that's a pretty big highlight within that whole thing as it unpacks with success.
Yeah. So after you go through something so chaotic in life that you never expect, and then you walk into church, and you were broken when you walked in, and you're starting to kind of see things differently. Sometimes the gift in life is timing. So that is when Giovanna, who's my wife now, we kind of rekindled things. So I actually knew her I met her at McDonald's.
No kidding. Wow. All
I was
right.
manager back in the day, in Tom's River. And before I was married, we did hang out for a little bit, but it was actually between the time of me breaking up with my ex-wife, who was my girlfriend at that time. Uh, or actually, I think she broke up with me. And then she decided she wanted to get back together with me. So it was kind of like a short thing, but she was there, back then. So I said, she never got a fair shot. And, the time that we spent together, that short time when we were kids, was good. It was fun. And, we just kind of rekindled things. And, after a couple of years, we got married and then had two kids.
That's awesome, man.
Milani's 9, Leo's 11. He's going to be 12. And I'd say in 2012, I actually got pretty much full custody of my two older kids, Kaylee and JJ. So they were living with us during the week, Monday through Friday, and I was responsible for school and sports and everything. I was coaching JJ's baseball team and coaching Kaylee's softball team. So those were good times. But yeah, life just kind of came back together. And I believe it was definitely because of my shift, and how I looked at things and my mindset, which changed, when I got plugged back into church.
That is wow. I just gotta say, man, look, I can't smile any bigger, brother. I mean, that is, from the whole journey, but at that one point, lost, walked in through the doors to now unfolding a beautiful enterprise with the woman that she wasn't ready for you then, but ready for you now with two great kids. What a story. But I do want, because when we first met, you've got a truly special son. Share, because I got to share how I think your mind just goes to another level. Share about your son.
Yeah.
If
So
you would, I don't want to twist your arms, but I'm proud of the situation.
yeah. Yeah, so Julio is he's 11 now. He'll be 12 in a little bit. Born in July. He's just a special kid. He really is. So we found out when he was about a year and a half, 2 years, that he had autism. We don't believe he was born with autism. That's probably another discussion for another day. But we at that point in time when we started finding this out, we wanted to do everything that we could to figure it out, whether it was early intervention, the therapeutic stuff, remedy stuff, whatever it may be. We looked into literally everything that he might need to just find success. So I'd say probably when he was around 3 or 4, he's having some issues at the playgrounds. And not necessarily that he wasn't playing nice or anything like that. It was just he didn't understand his limitations. So he'd go, climb all the way to the top. You're 15 feet up high, and he'd see the ladder, and he would just kind of put his leg out like he was going to just jump down, like Superman. He didn't understand, you had to climb down, the ladder to get down, or go down the slide to get down. So I was always chasing him, and that never stopped, which was fine. It was just one of those things where it wasn't as enjoyable of a experience, knowing that, hey, you can't take your eyes off of him, uh, and that's not normal for a parent. Kids are usually just free to go, free to play. So he didn't know his limitations. So I'd say probably about a year later, I hear a story, and there's this man talking about this field, and he wants to put together this what he calls a field of dreams, and it's a turf field for his son because his son was in a car accident and his son is now in a wheelchair. Wow, that's pretty powerful. I mean, I heard his whole story. You definitely have to have him on.
Mhm.
But when I heard his story, I said, "Oh, I have an idea. I want to help this guy." So I just reach out to him right away, like literally instantly, and he calls me within like 5 minutes, and we start having a discussion. And I just said, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I have a feeling that I'm supposed to help you." And we start talking, and I asked him, I was like, well, my son has autism, and I was wondering, like, do you have any intention on like building like a playground? And he said, yeah, it's we thought about doing something small, but it was going to be more about like just the field or whatever. And I thought, well, that's cool. The field would be cool because my son has autism, and I'm
Right.
obviously heavily involved with baseball with my other kids, so I thought that's going to be useful for him at one point in time. But I know now that there's a heavy need for autism because I'm very inside this community at this point and understanding how many kids have
I
autism.
wouldn't expect it any less, man. You go all in. That's it. You're all in, active. So you tore it up. Go ahead. Tell us the ending, because
Yep.
I've witnessed it.
So we meet up, and he comes to my office. He says, let me talk to your, business partners. I have an idea. And I said, sure. So he comes in and tells our story, and they're like 100% behind it. Like it was pretty much a sponsorship for this field, little sponsorship, for like 50 grand over, 5 or 6 years. And they were all in. And I thought at that point, like maybe we can align and do like our golf outing and benefit them to raise money. But they say, all right, we're going to take the sponsorships. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then by chance, our landscaper that works for our broker, my broker's like, you got to talk to him. He knows everybody. talk to him, and he ends up pretty much being our GC. He's not a landscaper. He's Mr. Everything. LJ landscaping, and anybody knows him. He's local. But yeah, so we start connecting these different things, and then it's networking, and then my buddies, Josh Blair from he's a mortgage guy locally. He gets involved in the field and does a sponsorship, and then my other buddy Steve gets involved. He takes the sponsor.
Snowballing. It's snowballing, man.
Then all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, you need to join the board," and I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what a board is, but whatever you."
Right on, man.
And we're doing fundraising, we're doing casino nights, and then it's pretty much getting the field actually built, because a lot of that was, just fundraising at that point until pretty much 2019. And then we go start to build, and then COVID happens. So we lose some of our contractors that were going to donate goods and
Right,
services and
yeah.
stuff during that time because they didn't know what was going to happen with business.
Right, right.
So it kind of delays things, but ultimately we get the field built, and now it's an insane facility. It's way bigger than we ever thought it was going to be. Turf field, it's an insane playground. I mean, there's no playground around like it. Everybody tries to get in, but we
Yeah.
cater more towards the special needs. It's a basketball court that's there. We got bocce ball. We got a mini golf course. We got the snack shack. We got a quiet corner. We have a hydroponic
You
organic.
got a zip line,
We
man.
have the zip line.
I mean, for those that are listening that's in, I would say, the New Jersey area, it is a better playground than any I've seen, whether special needs or not. It is top notch, man. It's an amazing thing. It warms your heart to see not the finished product, but, I'm going to sidestep. Today I open up, you're looking at news feeds and all, and what does it entail? Negative, 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 negative. Everything's negative. I didn't want to listen to the news. I mean, being in the mortgage finance, you just got to listen to the news, listen to the market, blah, 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 blah. That's why I love this channel, to be able to talk with you, an hour and a half, and just uplifting, inspirational thing. To hear about you having a special needs gifted and outstanding warrior of a son, and one phone call, not for a listing, not for a showing, nothing. One little phone call instantaneously just dominoes into an amazing attribute of passion, compassion, just real, down to earth, truthful soul to make something. Can you imagine the individual, the original founder, I guess, who you've spoken to, that I'll get to have his son in a wheelchair be able to go on a merry-go-round, to go on a zip. I mean, just because everyone, it they just want to be special, even as a parent. You just want to see a smile on your kid's face is 1,000 words, and just that you and that whole team. I walked through it. I'm telling you, it is amazing. And it's not just for kids. Any special needs, challenged, special individual from a human being, right? I mean, anybody with
Age.
yeah, any age. It's an amazing. So, dude, I mean, you're blessed. Come on, man. I said it once, I said a gazillion times. Think about it when you were sitting in front of the mirror with your pockets inside out with the rabbit ears, not two nickels in it, not going to college, not really sure, but there was greatness for you, right? So this leads me to two last questions for you. And the one is kind of a spin on what I just said. If you were able to jump back in time at any point, when that young man, or any point in your entire career, and whisper in your ear, the little comment, paragraph, little something, pulled you aside, what would you say to yourself, man? What do you think you'd want to hear that would benefit you?
And just keep going.
I don't think you got to say anything else. I mean, just keep moving. Enough said, right? Just keep moving. And the last is, I know you saw, I mean, this symbol, which is more than just a logo. It's the heart. It's the heart, which I see. It's the mind, body, soul. The EKG is representative of life. We all got that big up, big down, and everything in between, and the word unbroken. I mean, it is certainly a representation of your life, but do you see it more as a deeper meaning? What would you say to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think with people, you'll always have challenges no matter what level of life you're at. You could have all the money in the world, you could be broke. I mean, life is about challenges, life's about thinking, and you will be broken at some point, so it is about
Yep,
just getting.
I'm gonna bite. You're gonna bite your tongue. It's cracked. You were cracked. You're cracked. You were hanging by a thread. You were broken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, everybody's gonna be broken at some point. So,
Yeah.
so it is about just kind of if you do keep going, right? Life is gonna
Yeah.
throw things at you, but what do? Are you gonna just sit back and let the things happen, or are you gonna actually stand up and get out there and just let life, come to you, or let life challenge you, So you'll you'll know people, you'll meet people, you'll hear things, you know. God will speak to you in
Amen.
many different ways in life, and you just need to be open to listening to it. And if you're, drowning your sorrows in drugs or alcohol or anything, you're not going to hear it. You're going to miss it. You're going to miss it all. So it is keeping your mind right. And part of keeping my mind right was getting back in the gym because I was 100% broken at that point, and I never had that feeling of knowing what my brain could do personally to get myself out of it. And it was the combination. It was church and it was also the gym. The gym really is what kind of kept me on the track. So I didn't go off track, while, church was there to kind of build me up at the same time. But I needed to clear my mind when I would wake up early in the morning. I needed something to look forward to, and just there's just something about working out and pushing yourself to the limit and exhausting yourself and being able to then recover and then going into work kind of with a clear mind.
Amen.
That's the point in time too where I just started to learn more, whether it be podcasts or books and things like that. I started to clear my mind of all those things that I used to know and fill them back with all good things. And still to this day, you have to challenge yourself. You
Awesome.
have to continue to break things that are old off of your routine, off of your habits. Don't take the easy way out. Challenge yourself to be better each day. Challenge yourself to remove things that you know should not be in your life, and you'll find out that it is work. Everything in life is work, but it's worth the challenge. You could beat it.
Well said, my friend. Dude, thank you so much for coming on, Justin. Now they know what your name is about, my friend. I'm telling you. Justin Bosak, it's a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for everything, Rich.